morning at 6 and 9:30, only on TV 13.
Beekman's World. Everything you ever wanted to know, but didn't know whom to ask.
Al, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Danson and Branson, a News Center 13 special report, Monday at 10. This is WHO TV 13 Des Moines.
Good morning. Carthage, Tennessee welcomed Al Gore back home last night as the new Vice President-elect of the United States. While Bill Clinton has named Vernon Jordan of Washington, D.C., and Warren Christopher of Los Angeles to handle the new administration's transition into power. They're the ones who'll receive the resumes, and the fax lines are probably open today, Saturday, November 7th, 1992.
From NBC News, this is Today with Scott Simon and Jackie Nespral.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Jackie. And in just a few minutes, we're going to talk to Judge Robert Bork about the ways in which he sees the Supreme Court potentially changing under a Clinton and Gore administration.
And it's not just the Supreme Court. Mr. Clinton will have a lot of federal judges to appoint. Apparently, Mr. Bork is predicting a big swing to the left. And also coming up this hour, expert advice on a topic all parents have to face eventually. What to say when your kids start asking for information about sex. Scott?
And one of America's great chefs, Paul Prudhomme, will stop by to cook and also to talk with our mouths full.
But first, the news. President-elect Bill Clinton is spending a little time in Little Rock, Arkansas, resting up after a marathon campaign. Aides say he plans no more decisions or announcements before Monday at the earliest. He made 2 appointments yesterday that he hopes will lead to a smooth transfer of power. Vernon Jordan, a past president of the National Urban League, will be in charge of the transition team. And former Deputy Secretary of State Warren Christopher will head up the day-to-day operation. And while the president-elect was back in Arkansas, the vice president-elect went back home to Tennessee. Al Gore and his wife Tipper flew to Nashville last night and got a big welcome. There was a rally at the War Memorial Auditorium with 2,000 supporters there to greet them. It was a happy, noisy crowd backed by rock and country music. Gore said he would do everything possible to make the new administration a success, working mostly out of Little Rock between now and Inauguration Day. The national unemployment rate is at 7.4% this morning. That's 1/10 of a point better than last month. Good news for the economy, but as Alan Chernoff reports, there's still a long way to go.
On the surface, the unemployment report is encouraging. The jobless rate is now at its lowest level in 6 months, and it has been declining steadily, from 7.8% in June, down 1/10 of a percent every month through October, bringing the rate to 7.4%. And in some big states, unemployment fell dramatically during October. But the labor market is not as good as it might appear. The number of new jobs created in the economy during October, 27,000, was very weak. The unemployment rate fell because the number of people in the workforce declined. Teenagers returned to school, and discouraged job hunters have given up hope of finding employment. Rather than hiring new workers, many companies are having employees work longer hours. Other companies are hiring only on a part-time freelance basis. That way they can avoid paying benefits. President-elect Bill Clinton says helping the economy will be his #1 priority. Among other things, he plans a government-sponsored jobs program to get people back to work.
But Wall Street economists say there is no quick fix. They argue no matter what the president-elect does, the economy is likely to keep crawling through early next year.
For NBC News, I'm Alan Chernoff.
The European community is deciding today just what to do about the tariffs imposed by the United States on French wines and other exports. A possible trade war lies in the balance. More from Keith Miller in London.
European community's 12 member states met outside of London, seeking ways to head off a trade war with the United States. But if talks can't be resumed, European officials are drawing up a hit list of American products to be penalized in retaliation. The dispute is over subsidies paid to French oilseed farmers. U.S. officials claim the subsidies rob American farmers of $2 billion in trade each year. In Paris, there was outrage that the French wine industry was being hit with a heavy tariff on exports to the U.S.
The Americans are very clever because they have just put the finger on the place where it hurts.
The European community wants to avoid escalating the dispute since most experts say they have the most to lose. At jeopardy is a breakthrough worldwide trade agreement that has taken 6 years to negotiate. Keith Miller, NBC News, London.
National Guard troops and helicopters began nighttime patrols on a stretch of Interstate Highway 295 near Jacksonville, Florida. The reason? A rash of sniper attacks against motorists since last February. Over 30 cars or trucks have been hit by gunfire, bricks, and chunks of concrete. 80,000 cars a day use the highway, and many of the drivers are tourists heading south to Orlando and Disney World. And that is the news at this hour. Let's take a look at the weather with Al.
That's right.
So how does it look for this weekend?
Well, it looks a lot better than it does for the French. I mean, now they're going to be putting that tariff on all the Jerry Lewis films. So it's going to be awful.
That's
no, Nutty Professor? Ooh!
They're not happy about that.
That's right. Check out the satellite picture. We'll show you what's going on. And you'll see that we have a lot of clouds, especially around the Great Lakes and the Northeast. Also, some activity moving into the Northwest. Here's what your afternoon temperatures shape up like. We are going to be looking at very, very cold conditions throughout much of the country. Below seasonal for about 2/3 of the U.S. Only seasonal spots going to be in California, in the desert Southwest, and in southern Florida. Now, here's what kind of weather you can expect for the day. Wet weather from the Northwest through the Cascades, the Intermountain region, on into the Northern Rockies. Sunny and mild in the Southwest. Sunshine, but cool through the Gulf Coast and on into Texas. Some snows from the western Great Lakes right through the Ohio Valley, mid-Mississippi Valley. Clouds into the Northeast. Some rain in central and southern Florida. Sunshine throughout much of Hawaii, but we're looking at very chilly conditions in New England and the great Northeast with some interior snows in New York City, make that New York State and Pennsylvania. Coming up on 6 minutes past the hour, that's your weather here on Today. And you can expect a high today, 46 degrees in Washington, D.C. They'll have cloudy skies, 43 for a high in Boston today, and they'll have some sunshine. 29 in Minneapolis, St. Paul. The snow will be flying there again today. 56 in Denver. And you can expect some sunshine, 77 in Los Angeles, sunny as well. And today's almanac, the Kalamazoo Holiday Parade in Kalamazoo, Michigan, cloudy and temperatures in the upper 30s. That's your latest weather. Now here's the man who loves Michael Jordan. And, oh, I'm sorry, yeah. I forgot. We have to talk about the Willard line in case you want your weather, your extra weather. 1-900-WILLARD. He makes me wear his toupee if I don't say it. 95 cents per minute. An average call is about 2 minutes. And again, they can get your weather 24 hours a day. And now it's time for Mr. Jordan's favorite sportscaster.
Well, I don't know about that. In fact, I'm quite certain that's not true, but #1 fan, certainly. It appears the two college football conferences might soon merge. Members of the Southwest Conference voted to pursue a merger with the Big 8 Conference. They're concerned that the Big 10 and the Pac-10 conferences might expand to 12 teams, becoming the Big 12 and the Pac-dozen. Overwhelming smaller conferences. You know, it's getting to be a lot like the airlines. With the rest of today's sports, here's Bill Crowley.
Some of the opening night action in the NBA, the post-Larry Bird era in Boston, started with a bang as Reggie Lewis popped for 27 points and the Celtics beat Minnesota 113-92. In Yokohama, Japan, Seattle's Sean Kemp put on a show as the Supersonics shot down the Rockets 111-94. Air Jordan and the Chicago Bulls are still flying high. Jordan had 29 and the two-time NBA champs beat Cleveland 101-96. Dominique Wilkins also picked up where he left off, reaching the 20,000-point milestone after missing much of last year. But Patrick Ewing had 22 points as the Knicks beat the Hawks 106-94. Chuck Daly's debut as coach of New Jersey was a surprising success. Chris Morris had 28 points as the Nets beat the Sixers 114-111. Also making a debut, Lloyd Daniels, who scored his first NBA basket after a long comeback from drugs and a near-fatal shooting. But San Antonio lost to Sacramento 114-106. That's today's sports. I'm Bill Crowley.
Up next, what will Bill Clinton's election mean for the U.S. Supreme Court and the federal judiciary? We're going to ask Judge Robert Bork after these messages.
Too good to be true. You're gonna feel all right in all the right places. Just wait till we get
tear-away sweats, styled to give you the colors, the cuts, the room to be you.
Whoa, just wait till we get our hands on you.
This is Scrutinized. It's a game where you find as many things that start with the same letter in pictures like these.
Football, a fountain, a flounder, a fan.
Not a flounder.
No, just dry flounder.
It's also a game you'll really get into.
Pajamas, a Pomeranian. Parrot.
Peppermill, Pekingese.
Yes.
Flash. There's a balloon.
And pants. Ready for round two?
Okay, now.
Honey, this is the flounder, okay?
Play Scrutinized. 24 pictures, thousands of images.
Want to run all your software fast? Then look for the Intel Inside symbol on your next computer. It says you've got a real power source on the inside. Like the upgradable Intel 486 microprocessor. Power it up and run your software at light speed. Intel, the computer inside.
The suspension system in the Oldsmobile 98 is engineered to provide you with a level of comfort that's virtually unheard of. The 98 from Oldsmobile. The power of intelligent engineering.
Visit your local dealer and get great deals on every model during Oldsmobile's 95th birthday celebration.
She saw a murder, and it took her 20 years to remember it.
How could I send my father to prison?
Based on one family's true story, Shelley Long, Fatal Memories, NBC Monday.
One of the most enduring legacies of the Reagan and Bush administrations is embodied on the Supreme Court. The Democrats were quite direct in saying that this is a legacy they would like to undo. Joining us this morning to discuss possible changes in the judiciary is Judge Robert Bork, who, of course, was once appointed to the Supreme Court by President Reagan, rejected by the Democratic majority in the Senate. Mr. Bork is now with the American Enterprise Institute. Judge Bork, thanks very much for being with us.
Glad to be here.
And, frankly, political question first. What happened, Your Honor?
In the election?
Yes, sir.
Well, I guess people had had enough of George Bush. I don't think that there was as much enthusiasm for Governor Clinton as there was a desire to see the back of the president.
And those people that tried to make the Supreme Court the federal judiciary, in fact, the Justice Department under a Reagan and Bush administration, the issue, do you think that was an issue?
Well, it should have been an issue, but I don't think most people really vote for presidential candidates with what they're likely to do to the courts in mind.
Let me get your projections about what the court's going to be facing. For example, this court, to a degree against all expectation, essentially upheld the major provisions of Roe versus Wade. Do you see that changing if there's a change in the composition of the court?
Well, the court allowed some restrictions on the abortion procedure, and I think that if there's a change in the composition with justices appointed by President Clinton, I think Roe against Wade will come back in full vigor and perhaps even be wider and more powerful than it was.
Roe v. Wade is going to become more of what some people have objected to?
Yeah, I think it become more like abortion on demand.
Let me ask you, for example, Bill Clinton said that President-elect Clinton has said he didn't essentially promise a seat to Governor Cuomo of New York, but his language was read by some people as essentially holding out that hope. What kind of nominee would Governor Cuomo be?
Well, he would be a nominee that I would prefer to some of the other names that have been mentioned, but I think Governor Cuomo, in what little he has written about constitutional law, suggests that he would be less bound by the actual Constitution than by his own idea of what's fair.
Let me ask you about another name, Marion Wright Edelman.
Well, I think you're talking about fairly activist, very liberal people, and who are likely to move the court well to the left.
And you would be against this?
I would. I think the court ought to be neutral in political matters and ought to stick to the actual meaning of the Constitution as it was originally understood.
Judge Bork, I'm wondering how much of your own confirmation process, or what wound up being a non-confirmation process, figures into your thinking on this?
Well, no, I thought this way before the confirmation process, which in part accounts for the outcome of the process. What I'm saying to you now is exactly what I'd written before.
Yeah. Well, let me put it this way. Do you think the Democrats have one coming, a tough confirmation battle, using what you might consider to be some of the same tactics that were trained on you?
It may be. It may be. I think it depends on how extreme the candidates are that Governor Clinton, President-elect Clinton, decides to nominate. Because some of the names that have been mentioned are extremely liberal to radical and would clearly change the meaning of the Constitution in a leftward direction.
Governor Clinton says that left to his own devices, he would ordinarily not insist that anyone he might nominate for a seat on the Supreme Court would oppose or uphold Roe versus Wade and a woman's right to abortion is interpreted in this country. But he says he has to do it because of what was done to the court under President Reagan and President Bush on that issue. How do you assess that thinking?
Well, I think that's spurious because, as a matter of fact, the court now is not a conservative court. It is a slightly liberal court, particularly on issues like abortion and other lifestyle or sexual morality issues.
Does this suggest to you, Judge Bork, that people change on the court? Is it a process you've contemplated yourself if you'd been on there?
I think people who come on the court without a strong judicial philosophy, that is, without a strong understanding of what a judge's role is, are quite likely to change. And they have.
Judge Bork, what about capital punishment? Do you project that might change over the next few years?
Yes, it's quite possible if President Clinton has a number of appointments that the death penalty could be declared unconstitutional, which is very bad constitutional law because the Constitution about 4 times explicitly assumes the availability of the death penalty.
And you don't buy the argument that it amounts to cruel and unusual punishment?
It can hardly do that when the death penalty was favored by the founders of this nation and is favored today by a majority of the states. So it can hardly be unusual.
Judge Bork, any 1 or 2 names of Democrats that you would like to propose?
Well, for example, on the Second Circuit, there is a judge named Amalia Kearse, I think would be good. And there are others.
Okay. Judge Robert Bork in Washington, D.C., thank you very much for being with us, Your Honor.
Thank you.
And still had expert advice from parents on what to do when your child starts to ask questions about sex. But first, this is Today on NBC.
Each year, taxpayers pump millions into the food stamp system.
Hi, you want to buy some stamps? I got 20.
Food stamps are supposed to buy food for needy families and children.
Think he'd buy some food stamps? Will Bob buy some food stamps?
It's your tax money, but is it being used for the right purpose? Or is it being used to buy drugs, liquor, and even cigarettes?
I really thank you very much. No.
News Center 13's undercover investigation, Money for Nothing, food stamp fraud, Wednesday.
I've always wanted to be like my brother.
Are you making fun of me?
He used to take care of me all the time. Make sure I never did anything wrong. Used to hang around Derek, and me.
Oh, look who's here.
Then things started to change.
You ain't down, you're out.
He started taking money from my mom. Everybody told me he was on drugs. I couldn't believe it. Not my brother. But it was true. Drugs killed my brother. Yeah. I miss him.
What's happening and why? Now you can know. Because there's a show called Real News for Kids. From the latest trends, world events, what's hot? You'll get the big story on Real News for Kids. News from your point of view. It's your world too. And this show's for you. Real News for Kids.
Saturday mornings at 5:30 and 9, only on TV 13.
It's an age-old problem. What do you say to your children when they start asking about sex, especially if they bring the questions home from school long before you expected them to? Dr. Stanley Greenspan is a professor of child psychiatry at George Washington University Medical School, and he has some advice for parents. Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, a lot of kids ride the school bus home. They listen to older kids' conversations about sex, about condoms, about AIDS. What should a parent do in a situation like that?
most important thing for parents is to realize children often want to know more than they can handle. So a child is curious, comes home, Mommy, Daddy, tell me all about this. But if it's a preschooler, they only want to know a little bit. If it's an early school-age child, they want to know a little more. And if they're getting close to puberty, they want to know even more. So the parents have to package the information to meet the child's emotional makeup and emotional developmental stages.
So we shouldn't give them more information than what they're really asking.
Don't overload a child. There's one 7-year-old said to me, he said, after hearing all about the facts of life, as he had an older sister, he said, I could have waited to learn about that. I'm not ready.
Now, how do we know when the kids are ready?
Well, general guidelines. For example, preschoolers. They're interested when it comes to the facts of life, a little bit about how a baby grows in the mommy's tummy. They're not interested in how the baby gets there. Early school-age children, they're interested to know that there are seeds, and they know that mommy and daddy have something to do with how the seeds get into the tummy, but they don't want to know the details yet about exactly how those seeds come together. But by age 9, 10, 11, and 12, then kids want to know the facts because they'll be embarrassed. Their friends know it, and even if they're not quite ready, they still want to know it. Parents should always also ask the child, what do they think? What do they feel? Children have their own theories, and they love to share those theories with the parents if the parents will only be interested and ask.
How about the age-old myths, like the stork brought the baby home?
Well, that's not bad for the preschool.
Really?
But the preschool will have its own theory. The preschool will say, Mommy gets the baby in the tummy by drinking water. Or the early school-age child will think it has to do with Mommy and Daddy hugging and kissing.
Mm-hmm.
Not till age 9, 10, 11, and 12 will children begin getting an appreciation, unless parents have overloaded them earlier on.
But won't a kid lose trust in their parent if they later find out that the stork story was a fib?
Generally, parents should pay attention to the child's own pet idea or fantasy, and two, give them a general idea, but don't try to give them too many specifics.
There are a lot of books and videos on the market to explain to children about sex. Should we use these?
Use the books and videos as helpers. Parents should be in charge of what information children get. If a book can help the parent because it has nice illustrations or a nice little story, the parent should selectively use those books that fit into the message they want to convey to their children.
What is the easiest way to explain sex to a child?
The easiest way to explain sex to the child is to first ask the child what they think about it. Then second, depending on the child's age, again, if it's a preschooler, a little bit about how babies grow in tummies. If it's a school-age child, that there's seeds and eggs, and babies grow out of the eggs just like they do with animals. And if it's an older child, present them the facts scientifically.
I think it's easier for a mother to explain sex to a daughter and a father to a son. Should both parents be present when this discussion arises?
Both parents don't have to be present, but both parents should participate in the discussions. Sometimes both present, sometimes one-on-one. The important thing is to create an emotional climate where it's relaxed, supportive, empathetic. The child has a chance to share their feelings and thoughts, where it's not didactic. The child is not being lectured to, and it's not anxiety-prone. It may happen in the car driving to a soccer game. It may happen late at night while being cuddled in bed.
Do kids know more at an earlier age nowadays?
Well, sometimes they know too much, and they know more than they want to know. Generally, they're learning more and more at earlier ages because their peers are talking more, and because parents feel an unnecessary pressure to educate the children too early. Parents should be comfortable in saying, you know, I'm going to tell you about that when you're a little older, but you're not ready yet to hear about that. And the child will say, well, yes, I am. No, you're not. Just like the child can't stay up till 1 or 2 o'clock at night, the child has to wait to learn certain facts of life.
So the bottom line advice on sex ed?
The bottom line advice is, first, find out what your child thinks and feels, and 2, adjust the information to the child's age.
Slowly but surely.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Dr. Greenspan, for being with us.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after these messages, but first, this is Today on NBC.
Oh, we've got some stuffers here. Yeah, here we go again.
Today is brought to you in part by Apple. If you want a computer that's easy to use, there's still only one way to go. Macintosh, the easy way.
If you're printing to the LPT1, try printing to the LPT1C:\Windows. The device command in this example sets up the HIM.
Oops. What did I do?
I don't know. Page
What are you
99.
guys doing? You've been fooling with that thing for 3 days now. Making it easy to use.
So we'll be more productive.
If it is productive much longer, we'll go out of business.
If you want a computer that's easy to use, there's still only one way to go.
Hey, kids! What's the difference between an ordinary sports announcer?
Hey, sports fan!
Nice man.
Nerd. And the inside stuff announcer. Most announcers show you the same old stuff. These don't. Most announcers are content to sit behind a desk. These aren't. And most announcers can't spot extraordinary talent. Yes!
And it counts.
These can. Not your normal features, not your normal announcers, not your normal sports show. But then again, who wants normal? Inside Stuff, Saturdays on NBC.
Introducing a different air freshener. New Glade Nature's Collection.
Give me fresh, give me clean, give me Nature's Collection.
Glade's collection of nature's freshest fragrances in a spray and a carpet deodorizer. It's different, never heavy, always light to freshen any room.
So fresh, so light. Give me fruit, give me green, give me Nature's Collection.
New Glade Nature's Collection from SC Johnson Wax.
Nature's Collection, yeah.
Rust. What it can do to the outside of your car, weak, neglected antifreeze can do to the inside. You need Prestone. No matter what happens to the outside, Prestone protects the inside. Prestone stops the rust that stops your car.
These are Jimmy Dean flapsticks. They taste wonderful, the hardest thing I ever tried to explain in my life. Take Jimmy Dean sausage, wrap a nice pancake around it, put a handle on it. You understand that? You do. Try it. Taste that country goodness.
On Friday, Buckingham Palace did something it does not normally do. It released a statement from Princess Diana responding to continuing press reports that her marriage to Prince Charles is fragile. But the princess did not talk about her husband. She talked instead about her in-laws, and she denied stories that she has been feuding with the Queen of England and the Prince of Edinburgh. What the princess did not deny is the continued speculation about trouble between herself and her husband. This is all part of the latest installment of the royal soap opera. Here's how Carol Walker of the BBC is reporting the story.
From the moment they arrived in South Korea, the Prince and Princess of Wales were dogged by some of the most intense speculation about their marriage. Reporters with the royal tour commented on the lack of eye contact and conversation between the couple. There was a string of headlines on their apparent unhappiness during their first trip together for some time. But the princess decided to speak out over suggestions that the trip only went ahead because of pressure from the Queen and reports from Andrew Morton's book that she'd fallen out with the Duke of Edinburgh. The princess said she wished to single out from the recent wave of misleading reports about the royal family assertions in some newspapers this week directed specifically against the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh. The suggestion that they have been anything other than sympathetic and supportive is untrue, she said, and particularly hurtful. The prince has warmly endorsed this. The fact that the princess has not denied the stories about the state of the royal marriage appears to lend weight to reports of difficulties between the royal couple, and it's already being seized on by the newspapers as further confirmation of the rift between Charles and Diana.
The matter of the relationship between the Queen and Princess Diana is of more minor importance, and yet the palace has chosen to deny that and not to deny the claims that the marriage is in trouble. So every journalist now who follows these things will now conclude that the marriage is in trouble and that the palace has implicitly verified and confirmed that it's in trouble.
But the princess is also signalling that she wishes to remain a part of the royal firm, to carry on with her official engagements, and that the Queen and the Duke of Edinburgh are supporting her in this. The palace say she'll be attending a number of remembrance services this weekend. Prince Charles is carrying out a series of separate engagements in Hong Kong.
That is Carol Walker of the BBC. We will have more on today after a station break.
Hey, could you retire as comfortably as your parents?
No way!
Are you ready for the future?
It's impossible to save.
You can't afford to miss this Dateline Tuesday.
Plants and trees add so much to your interior decor. When they are made of silk, they will last forever. I'm Denny Llewellyn with Silk Designs Extraordinaire. We pride ourselves in satisfying our customers' decorating needs. Our designers will custom make your silk plants, trees, and floral arrangements. You'll see our permanent plants and trees in many homes and commercial businesses. We also rent for special occasions, like weddings and banquets. For permanent plants and trees that look real and will last for years, come to Silk Designs Extraordinaire in Valley Junction, right across from the post office.
The new home for the biggest names in country music, and it's in our backyard. The Man in Black, The Streak, The Rhinestone Cowboy, The Coal Miner's Daughter, and The Outlaw are all here. Thousands of Central Iowans are making the journey to Branson, Missouri, and recently so did News Center 13's Lori Groves.
I'm Lori Groves.
And I'm Mel Tillis, and I want to invite you all to come on down to Branson.
Dancing in Branson, a News Center 13 special report Monday at 10. News Center 13's undercover investigation, Money for Nothing, food stamp fraud, Wednesday.
Welcome back to Today. I'm Jackie Nespral along with Scott Simon and Al Roker. And coming up in this half hour, our fitness expert, Kathy Smith, will give us some ideas on how to get kids off the couch and into an exercise program. Scott?
And Chef Paul Prudhomme will be here to do some cooking for us, undoing virtually all of the good that Kathy Smith has been trying to do. But first, Jackie has this news.
President-elect Bill Clinton plans arresting his raspy voice this weekend, but his transition team takes no breaks. The president-elect has picked two well-known Democrats to recruit a Clinton cabinet. They are Vernon Jordan, a Washington civil rights leader, and Warren Christopher, a former Deputy Secretary of State from California. Others on the transition team include Clinton's campaign chairman, a former Vermont governor, and a former San Antonio mayor. Their first job, naming an economic security council to jumpstart the economy. Vice President-elect Al Gore will be a key player on that transition team. He and wife Tipper took a break from Little Rock celebrations for one in their home state of Tennessee. Some 2,000 supporters turned out for a boisterous welcome, Nashville style, last night. Gore plans a quiet weekend at home. In Washington, a somber roll call this weekend marks the 10th anniversary of the Vietnam Memorial. The names are those engraved on the black granite wall. More than 58,000 Americans were killed in Vietnam. More than 200,000 Vietnam vets and their families are expected during the 5-day observance. And meanwhile, the transatlantic trade war is in limbo today. The European community seems split on a white flag or a counterstrike. Trade ministers from a dozen member nations of the EC are in emergency session near London today. They have not agreed on answering the United States' threat to double tariffs on white wine and other imports next month. To hold its fire, Washington is demanding France slash subsidies for farmers who grow oilseed. That's used in margarine and mayonnaise. American farmers say it cost them $1 billion a year. In Detroit, the police chief lashed out after a motorist was beaten to death in police custody. Chief Stanley Knox said it was a disgrace. The 7 officers are suspended without pay and could face murder charges in Thursday night's death. Motorist Malice Green allegedly was yanked from his car during a traffic check and beaten with a police flashlight. The 35-year-old father of 5 reportedly was beaten even after he was handcuffed. The victim was black. The police involved include both black and white officers. In Florida, the National Guard is back on emergency duty. First, it was hurricane patrols. Now, a sniper watch on a highway that's hazardous for tourists. Patrols began overnight along the Jacksonville bypass of Interstate 295. They're using combat vehicles and helicopters. More than 30 attacks have been reported since February. They include sniper bullets and concrete chunks hurled from overpasses. 295 is a main tourist avenue into Florida and to busy Disney World. The American Automobile Club warns motorists to avoid the highway. An Oklahoma jury ruled against makers of a well-known cigarette lighter, Bic. It's awarded $22 million to 3 children burned severely while playing with the butane lighter. The family says the lighters sometimes fail to go out and can explode. Now let's take a look at the weather with Al Roker.
That's right, and we checked. Our meteorologist on staff, Don Sunika, says ski season begins right around Thanksgiving.
Well, great.
So
we got to plan a trip.
Exactly. Okay. little.
All 3 of us.
A little weekend today trip.
The family.
Yeah, very nice.
I can't ski.
Well,
so much the better, right? You can only get hurt skiing.
So we'll tape you falling down.
Oh,
That'll
great.
be nice.
Great fun. No fun. You
Okay,
probably want to talk
I
to
have
us
to move
about
on. They're
something.
telling me to move on, and not that this isn't interesting. Let's take a look at what's going on right now, and we'll show you Notre Dame. I don't know who they're playing, but anyway, snow flurries and temperatures. Boston College, thank you. That's why it said BC there. Temperatures in the low 30s. Okay, let's check out the rest of your weather. Of course, that's going to be on NBC, and why would I mention it otherwise? We're looking for cold conditions in the northeast, some snows through interior sections of New York State, through the Ohio Valley, into the western Great Lakes, sunshine, but cool throughout much of the country. The northwest looks very wet with some interior snows in some of the mountain areas. And for Sunday, well, the snows get a little heavier around the Intermountain region and the Cascades, also around the Great Lakes, sunshine up and down the eastern seaboard, but it will be chilly. Mild conditions in the lower third of the country with sunshine around Hawaii, and we're looking for showers throughout parts of Alaska. 34 minutes past the hour. That's your weather here on Today. And you can expect a high today of 46 degrees in the nation's capital. We're looking for 36 degrees in Cleveland. Hello, Cleveland. You'll get a little more snow today. 77 degrees in beautiful downtown Los Angeles and sunshine. Showers in Seattle. 54, 29, and the snow will be flying in Minneapolis, St. Paul, in the southeastern New Mexico. Arts and Crafts Festival in Lovington, New Mexico. They've got gorgeous weather today. Sunny skies, but cool with temperatures in the mid-60s. 35 minutes past the hour. Now here's Scott.
Often senseless deaths make news while selfless lives do not. The Vatican and the U.S. State Department have denounced the deaths of 5 nuns from southern Illinois working in Liberia. A memorial service was held for those women this week where words from the book of Revelation were read. They have washed their robes in the blood of the Lamb. A few personal thoughts now on the lives these women led and gave up for the people they loved. Mary Joelle Colmer was 58. From a farm family in Waterloo, Illinois, and she liked to listen to country music because, say friends at her convent, she liked the stories. Sister Joelle taught school in Liberia, leading songs on her guitar and helping youngsters cut out and color birthday cards. Her friends and family remember how Sister Joelle talked to characters she saw on television and movie screens, warning them of danger when the music got moody. One of her brothers says that to watch her watching was more entertaining than any show. Several nuns at the convent say it's hard to see someone they remember by her smile and laugh left silent by death. Another brother says she embraced silliness. Shirley Colmer was Joelle's cousin. She was 62, also from Waterloo, and the former provincial or leader of their order, the Adorers of the Blood of Christ. The sisters remember Shirley as someone who led by asking questions instead of issuing commands. A phrase keeps coming back in their stories about the way she let young nuns and school children make mistakes and learn from them. You go ahead and nail yourself to the cross, she told them. I'll be there to take you down. Barbara Ann Mutra was 69. She was from Springfield, Illinois, and a nurse who worked for 3 years in refugee camps in Vietnam during the worst of that war. She rode a motorcycle in Liberia. Sisters who visited their home remember the sound of Sister Barbara kicking that cycle suddenly into gear when someone would run to tell them there'd been a bombing or a battle in the bush. She would never wait to hear if anyone was wounded, a nun remembers. She said, you didn't wait for the worst. You went out to find it. Kathleen McGuire had been in Liberia for only a year. She was 55, from Ridgeway, Illinois, and once worked in the sanctuary movement. Not only finding churches or convents to house Salvadoran refugees, but organizing small clandestine parties for their families. We can't just hide, we have to celebrate, she told her sisters. In one of her last letters home, they remember she asked for more information on solar ovens in Bolivia and another recipe for salsa. She seemed to feel that each, in its own way, could make a better world. Sister Agnes Mueller was 63. A nurse and a card player, gin rummy mostly. She was also a reader of religious works by Thomas Merton and mystery novels. As Merton wrote, faith is stepping without footing into mystery. Her family asked her to consider not returning to Liberia. She considered, but felt called to a country afflicted with suffering. Before she left, says her brother, she gave his daughter a music box that he had given her during World War II. He wonders now what she might have sensed if she set aside a foresight of her own death to see more deeply into her faith. The nuns were killed in an area that's now tenuously under rebel control, but it's difficult to see any political motive to their killings. Both sides in Liberia's civil war have picked young boys from the streets and villages, given them guns, bullets, and grown-up soldiers' uniforms, maybe the only clothes they have, and told them to fight. 60,000 Liberians have died. The sisters in southern Illinois say the women they shared their lives with were there to share that suffering. They had full, rich, fun, and rewarding lives, which were offered well before they died to the faith, the work, and the people that they loved.
Today is brought to you in part by MasterCard. Master the moment with the card that's accepted at nearly 10 million places worldwide.
Weekend. No tie, no briefcase, just plastic.
It all boils down to this. No other card you can carry is accepted in more places and in more ways.
Food.
At home and abroad.
I got it.
Than MasterCard. It's the only card you need.
Rooms.
MasterCard.
Not a bad day's work.
Master the moment.
Can a razor cut your beard below the skin without the blades touching your face? It can if it's a Norelco. Because inside the floating heads, our lift and cut system lifts the hair so when it's cut, it can drop below skin level without the blades touching your face. Are you shaving this incredibly close and comfortable? You are when you shave with Norelco. Norelco, we make close comfortable.
Hey, nice suit. Expensive?
Not at Burlington Coat Factory.
Designer dress. Cost a lot?
Not at Burlington Coat Factory.
Wow, great outfits. Cost your mom plenty?
Not at Burlington Coat Factory.
But why do they call it Burlington Coat Factory?
Because they have more thieves than anybody.
Besides, ever try to say Burlington ladies, men's, kids, suits, shirts, sportswear, linens, dresses, furs, slacks, Coat Factory?
You look like an angel, walk like an angel, talk like an angel, but I got wise. You're the devil in disguise. Oh, yes, you are. Devil in disguise.
Just when you thought you knew everything about Volvo.
Devil in disguise. Oh, yes, you are. The devil in disguise.
The statistics are discouraging. Kids today are less healthy than the previous generation. More time in front of the TV and less time on anything that resembles exercise. If you're a parent, what can you do? Our health and fitness expert, Kathy Smith, has some answers.
Okay, right through the obstacle course, I made it. Jackie, if parents want their kids to be in shape, they're going to have to help them get there. And we're going to just show you how to do that today. We've got some kids with us, and we have Pam Staver, creator of Power Play, a fitness program that parents and teachers can both use with their kids. Welcome, Pam.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm happy to be here.
It looks very exciting, and it looks also very affordable. What exactly, can you explain the circuit and exactly how you could set one of these up at home?
Kathy, a circuit is a great way to play with kids, and it doesn't need to cost a lot of money. As you can see, we're using paddle and balls and jump ropes and hula hoops and bean bags, and we've created our own obstacle course.
Which I made it through.
Which you made it through and did a very fine job with, I might add. It's just using things that you might have laying around the house. Maybe some soup cans to build, you know, your bicep muscle.
But what if you have a 4-year-old and you have a 10-year-old? How would you change the obstacle course?
You would just simplify your circuit. You would use pieces of equipment that they might be playing with on a regular basis at home. Things that are easy for them to do, things that make them feel successful.
Okay, well, this is great, and I know a lot of parents want to get creative at home. Other parents want to go to a structure class. So how can you find a structure class, and what are the safety considerations that a person should think of before starting a class?
There are some great classes for parents to take their children to through the YMCA, YWCA, JCCs, community centers, parks and recreation, health clubs. So any place like that would be a good place to look. In terms of safety considerations with kids, there's a couple of things that we really need to be mindful of. One is the fact that children, it's very it's very easy for them to dehydrate, so it's important that we encourage water intake, you know, before, during, and after class. And also, we do need to make sure that they're wearing proper footwear so that they don't injure their skeletal system.
Okay. I know that this whole STEP program has taken over the country, and for the last 2 years, all the adults have been stepping. But finally, there's a STEP program for kids, and we're going to see it here today, and Pam's going to take us through. So let's start with Steptacular.
I'm excited. We're going to teach you step ball change, and I think we're going to need a little bit of music here.
Okay, one for me.
And I'm going to want one of those balls, too. Now, the thing to remember about stepping with kids is we don't really care if they start on the downbeat or if they start on the right foot. What we care about is if they play and have a good time. So we're going to just bounce our ball. There's the ball. All right, let's take a big step up on top of the step. Now, everything we do with the step, Kathy, is a games-oriented approach to teaching kids about fitness. Let's bounce the ball again, you guys. And so we're just kind of playing, and if the ball goes flying someplace, we just run after it and keep right on playing. Other foot, here we go. Let's make a great big circle. You guys are doing a great job. And Kathy, you've got this one nailed. All right, let's bounce the ball again. Here we go. Let's see if we can bounce it all the way down to the end this time. All the way down. Just keep bouncing it. All right, and just step up. Up and down. Good. So you can see that it's just a real simplified way of playing with the step. And let's bounce the ball back to the front and bounce.
So bottom line is you want to make it fun.
Big step. That is the bottom line. Okay. Even though we want to teach kids about flexibility and how to take care of their muscles and how to stay strong, the bottom line with kids is that it's fun. Because if it's not fun, they won't do it. Big step. Here we go, you guys.
Wrong foot. Now, what if I went off my wrong foot there?
We don't care.
Doesn't matter, huh?
We just want you to have fun. Let's bounce it down to the other side. In fact, sometimes I like to start on the wrong foot. Okay, you guys, here we go. Get ready. Big step up. Here we go. And big. Yes. Up. We've got it. Oh, you guys are fabulous.
What do you guys feel? How do you feel after exercising, everybody?
Yeah. It's great.
Well, you heard it right from the horse's mouth. Jackie, back to you.
Thanks, Kathy. I feel like exercising with my daughter. It's true. Up next, Al does some cooking with world-class chef Paul Prudhomme. But first, this is Today on NBC.
First, there was Disney on Ice. Then came Sesame Street Live. Now there's Kids Touring Company in the Adventures in Agape Land tour with special guest Salty and the Friendship Company.
Hi, moms and dads. This is Salty, the singing songbook, and I'm on tour. Bring your kids out to see me at the Adventures in Agape Land show.
Adventures in Agape Land is coming Saturday afternoon, November 14th at 2 o'clock to the First Federated Church Auditorium. Call 255-2122 for ticket information.
In the old days, people had to go through a lot of work to get in touch with each other. Eloa has solved that problem by using a Motorola specialized radio. The system allows you to talk with your fleet in any one of 3 large areas in Iowa. The conversations are private, and there's no dialing to slow you down. You pay only one low monthly rate. Phone access is available at a slight additional cost. So if you're interested in saving time and money, give Eloa a call. Eloa, the Keep in Touch company.
Each year, taxpayers pump millions into the food stamp system.
Hi, you want to buy some stamps? I got 20.
Food stamps are supposed to buy food for needy families and children.
Think he'd buy some food stamps? Huh? Will Bob buy some food stamps?
It's your tax money, but is it being used for the right purpose? Or is it being used to buy drugs, liquor, and even cigarettes?
I really thank you very much. No.
News Center 13's undercover investigation, Money for Nothing, food stamp fraud, Wednesday at...
Hey, Joey, I got some stuff you just gotta try. What is it? Pot. You know, marijuana. Oh, well, I don't know. What, chicken?
Joey's in a jam. What should he do?
Kate. Get a teacher.
Excellent. Get a pizza. Get real.
Get out of there.
You got it. Let's see if Joey's that smart.
I'm not chicken. You're a turkey.
He's right. Drug dealers are dorks. Don't even talk to him. Cowabunga!
Oh, Smells so good in here. When you talk American cooking, there's no one better at it than Chef Paul Prudhomme, the author of some of the country's most popular cookbooks. His latest is Seasoned America. And today he has our studio smelling so good with egg foo young. Chef Paul, welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here. It's great to see you.
Now, well, Seasoned America, but yet you're making egg foo young.
Well, actually, egg foo young, we think, was probably started on the railroads when they built the railroads across the West. Had a lot of Chinese workers on there.
Right.
And they did things with, they did Chinese food, and they did very creative, innovative things. And we think maybe egg foo young was one of those.
Oh, like chop suey and that sort of stuff.
Right.
Well, give it, now, what do you have here?
Well, we have ham. And I should tell everybody, what we did with this book is we sort of took a few liberties. I mean, this is not this is not the identification of American food. This is American food done with a flair that I do with things. I like to season them, give it a lot of taste out of them. So we started with a good ham, and then we got a little ginger, and then we got milk and eggs, which are going to combine, some green onions. Then we did this in seafood, so we put shrimp and crab meat in it, put a little bit of fresh garlic and some seasoning, and then some sprouts, and then some more seasoning. But I've got, I like to, I mean, we want to get into this thing right away here.
Sure.
And so the best way to get into it is just give Al a little taste.
I think that's the best way to do it.
I'm going to turn these two over, and I'm going to start cooking while you taste.
Okay.
What I've done is I've got a little bit of oil in the ham in. I want to brown the ham because it gives that a really good flavor. I want to add the ginger to it. As soon as you put ginger in food, you're gonna really start smelling. It's gonna really get a good flavor going. And are you okay there?
Yeah. Can I have a couple more? I'm gonna give this to Scott and Jackie. What the
All
heck?
right. Okay. We're gonna just got them in the pan ready, so we might as well get to them.
Great. All
We've
right.
got 3 nice patties here.
Okay. You keep working on it.
Keep working on this. And
here, guys, Scott, Jackie.
The next.
Here you go. I want to give
next thing we're gonna do is let Al feed everybody.
Okay.
And then we're gonna put some garlic in. And this is fresh garlic.
Oh.
Now I'm gonna put the shrimp in, and the shrimp are fresh Louisiana shrimp, and I just want to get them hot. I want to warm them up. Now I've added some seasoning to it, but I'm adding a different set of herbs and spices to it that's got a little bit more ginger in. Now, if you'll take and mix the eggs and milk together in that mixing bowl, and I'm going to keep shaking
how many eggs are we talking here?
We're taking about 6 eggs.
6 eggs?
Yeah, we're cooking for a lot of people. So
all right, yeah, we got the whole studio here. I've been told if everybody doesn't get something to eat, I'm in big trouble.
Yes, that's normal. That's normal with the Today Show. It really is. We're
so shameless.
It might be the hungriest crew there is.
I think it is.
But I'll tell you, they're wonderful to be around.
Don't get your hands anywhere near them, or they'll be calling you lefty.
We're gonna put some of the sprouts in. Gonna put some of the sprouts in, and a little more of the herbs and spices.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna add the green onions. And you notice I didn't cook those because I like the nice color, crisp flavor to them. I'm gonna put the crab meat in. Now I've got the shrimp warm, so they'll cook fast with the eggs. And the reasoning behind it is the ham browning to give it taste. The shrimp has also got taste, but the shrimp will cook real quick because I've already started them cooking. And so then you just sort of return them to the pan.
Okay.
And you put a little bit in the skillet, and we're ready to go here.
All righty.
And so we've got egg foo young, and this has got the Al touch to it. this is going to be better.
Yeah.
It's going to be better than the others. I mean, there's no way you cannot make it better when Al gets a hold of it.
Now, is this so much a part of America, the fact that we have just taken so many ethnic foods and made them our own?
That's what makes American cooking so incredibly wonderful. We got this whole mixture. Then we pull everything down to our taste. And I think that's the way it should be. It should never be, we shouldn't be imitating. We should be saying, this is the way we like it in America, or this is the way we like it in this region of America. And, everybody that likes it that way, fine. The ones that don't, it's okay, too.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't really, food is so changeable and it's so big. I mean, you think about chickens. How many ways that chickens cook? Just like you, for instance, probably cook chicken in a way nobody else in your neighborhood does.
Yeah.
Nobody else in the next block or in the next city or the next country. So it's millions of ways to cook one thing, chicken. And it goes on with eggs and all the other things that we have in the world. I mean, it's just, cooking is so spectacular to be around, and it's so much fun to do.
How's that, Jackie? You've been putting a hurting on that thing.
Jackie's got a great smile on, doesn't she?
Yes, she does. Of course, that's not quite as cute when she's got that food dripping out like that. Hey, what can I tell you?
This is.
So you let it cook and then you flip it over again?
You flip it over and you get a nice brown color to it. It's kind of like making an omelet, but it's got different ingredients in it and, of course, different taste and a different smell. So egg foo young, Seasoned America, Al Roker.
That's it.
And we love you.
And Chef Paul Prudhomme. All right, Chef, thank you very much. The book is Seasoned America, and he's got the restaurants, and we got the food. We're going to make some more omelets, and we have these messages as we continue.
We love you, America!
Come on down. Look at this. Oh.
Good old granola has always been great for taste. Problem is, it's loaded with fat. For today's granola eater, there's Kellogg's low-fat granola. Just half the fat of other leading brands, but better still, wait till you taste it. Whole grains, sweet raisins, and almonds all blend together for one bountiful breakfast taste. Today's granola eater. Today's granola. Kellogg's low-fat granola. Great taste, half the fat.
That's right.
There's a little morale problem lately.
Am I missing something?
It's not exactly a cushy job. We owe them more than just a paycheck. When Buddy's wife was in the hospital, our health plan didn't cover everything.
What?
He had to lay out his own money.
Gaps like co-payments and deductibles can be closed with Aflac. Affordable supplemental insurance from Aflac gives your employees the protection they need and deserve.
Let's talk to Aflac.
Aflac, insuring over 35 million people worldwide.
Thirsty, man. Hi, Mom.
Hi, guys.
Anything for me?
Vegetables.
Okay, let's sit up. Soda, OJ, some purple stuff, Sunny Delight.
Sunny D. That's cool.
You're great.
Tastes like orange and tangerine.
Yeah, lime.
Some healthy junk, too.
Hey, this is good stuff. Your mom's all right.
Yeah, she's cool.
Sunny Delight, the good stuff kids go for.
The Carlsons have always loved Freedent. They love how it won't stick to their dental work. But since they've discovered our new Winter Fresh flavor, things have cooled off considerably. That is, at least as far as their breath is concerned. Because after all, when your mouth feels cooler, your breath feels fresher. So try new Winter Fresh Freedent, a cooler flavor for fresher breath.
Well, we are all back with Chef Paul Prudhomme. What do you think?
This is great.
Bello, bello. That's all I can say.
Tish, I love it when you speak French.
Yes.
Chef?
Especially that French with the shoe on it.
I understand you have a restaurant in Louisiana, New
That's
Orleans,
true.
that you don't accept reservation, there's a huge line, but I know that when I call you and say that I'm going to be there, you are going to accept my reservation, right?
Well, we'll be happy to. What we do is the next person at the door is the next person in.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get to the door, you'll be right in.
Oh.
And of course, you have the restaurant here in New York.
Well, the restaurant in New York, we traded it in.
Oh, I got you.
Yes, we did.
All right. for a future draft choice.
For a future draft choice.
And Scott Simon.
A toaster and a garden hose. Electric blanket at that time of year.
So now everybody's cooking, right? I mean, everybody loves to cook. This is the new theater, isn't it?
I think cooking is very important, and I think that it's very important for your health, and I think that we're going to find out in the next few years how important fresh food is and how important cooking it properly is, and how many things we can do that makes our life healthier and happier by what we eat and how we cook it. So I'm really excited about the future. I mean, cooking is so endless. I mean, it's so exciting to know that we're finally going to figure out when you put something in your mouth how it affects the electrical system in your body, how it nourishes the need for nutrients and all the things that make your body work. And I think that's the next 15, 20 years, all that's going to become apparent. You'll be able to go into a restaurant and say, you know, I have heart trouble, and they'll know how to fix your food and what to give and not to give you.
I have a question. Can something that tastes this good be healthy for you?
Yes, it can be. It's going to take some learning. It's going to take some time. Well, you know, we in America in the 1950s had very ordinary food. I mean, it was good, but it was ordinary. From 1950 to 1980, we made this gigantic leap into some of the best food in the world. And I think all you have to do is give American chefs, the Americans have such good know-how, and we're so creative, and we're so ready to do something different. Give American chefs the beginning, the start on how to do this, and I think they'll make you the best food in the world. That's the best food for you.
You know, Chef, we never see her. I want Kay to come here, the woman behind the man.
Come on, Kay.
Come on.
Yeah.
We never get to see Kay.
There she
All
is.
right. Welcome.
Just in time to say goodbye.
For those of you who are leaving us, we hope to see you tomorrow, but leave this to our own devices right now. For those of you staying with us, we'll have more on today after we wipe our mouths and go to a station break.
Next week on Today, a special interview with Irvin Magic Johnson.
Also Spike Lee on his new movie Malcolm X, and Phil Donahue on his 25th anniversary.
That's next week on Today.
Why do people choose to come to Ingersoll Wine and Spirits? For some, it's on the way, but for others, the attraction is Ingersoll Wine and Spirits' large selection of over 2,000 different brands and sizes. You'll discover unique brands you won't find in most other stores. Everything from the classics to the popular brands. If your present liquor store doesn't have it, try Ingersoll Wine and Spirits. Either we have it or we'll get it. So come to Ingersoll Wine and Spirits. Even if it's not on your way now, their great selection and low prices will make you change your way.
It's the new home for the biggest names in country music, and it's in our backyard. The Man in Black, the Streak, the Rhinestone Cowboy, the Coal Miner's Daughter, and the Outlaw are all here. Thousands of Central Iowans are making the journey to Branson, Missouri, and recently so did News Center 13's Lori Groves.
I'm Lori Groves.
And I'm Mel Tillis, and I want to invite you all to come on down to Branson.
Dancing in Branson, a News Center 13 special report Monday at 10. This is WHO TV 13 Des Moines.
Good morning. President-elect Clinton has named a couple of big-name lawyers, Vernon Jordan of Washington, D.C., and Warren Christopher of Los Angeles, to head the team that will handle the transfer of power from a Bush to a Clinton administration. The new president's first jobs program begins today, Saturday, November 7th, 1992.
From NBC News, this is Today with Scott Simon and Jackie Nespral.
Good morning, everybody, and good morning, Jackie. And in just a few minutes, we're going to talk with a man who was active but not very visible nationally during the last campaign. That's the Reverend Jesse Jackson.
And maybe, Scott, he'll tell us what role, if any, he's going to participate in Clinton's administration. Also coming up in this hour, what to do when you hear the words low-fat, light on food labels, and your medical rights in case of malpractice. How can you protect yourself, Scott?
We'll also find out how cars get ready for the winter because, after all, they can't hibernate.
But first, let's get caught up with the news. President-elect Bill Clinton is in Little Rock today, starting the first quiet weekend he's had in months and looking to regain both his strength and his voice. His administration has begun taking shape with two key appointments. More from Ed Rabel.
This afternoon, and
Vernon Jordan will be in charge of the transition. Warren Christopher will run the day-to-day operation.
All right, first priorities is to help President-elect Clinton and Senator Gore to begin to choose the cabinet officers and the team that they will use, depend upon to run this government.
Christopher said he was taking himself out of consideration for the post of Secretary of State to assure objectivity.
It indicates that President Clinton will attract the very best people to the government.
Jordan and Christopher got high marks from Clinton for selecting Al Gore as his running mate. Earlier, Christopher said one of the first priorities will be to create an Economic Security Council in the White House. The idea to turn the economy around fast. Ed Rabel, NBC News, Little Rock.
Vice President-elect Al Gore and his wife Tipper are back home in Tennessee this morning. They got a big welcome last night in Nashville. 2,000 supporters greeted them at the War Memorial Auditorium. It was a happy, noisy crowd backed by recorded rock and country music. Gore said he'll spend a good deal of time in Little Rock during the transition period. President Bush is spending the weekend at Camp David. In a taped radio address being broadcast today, he talked about his election defeat and said he alone was at fault.
There must be no finger pointing, no playing the blame game. New ideas will flourish, and that is good. But as for what is past, I can only say that it was my administration, my campaign. I captained the team, and I take full responsibility for the loss. No one else is responsible. I am responsible.
The New York Times reports this morning that there have been discussions about a pardon for former Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger in the Iran-Contra case. Weinberger has been charged with perjury to Congress and lying to prosecutors. He is scheduled to go to trial next January 5th. Trade negotiations between the United States and the European community might resume soon. When talks broke down this week, the U.S. increased tariffs for French wines and other exports. Trade ministers from 12 European countries met this morning outside London. They are looking for ways to stop a trade war with the United States even before it starts. If they can't, there is the option of penalties against American products in retaliation. In Moscow, today is the 75th anniversary of the Communist Revolution. What had been a day of great celebration under the Communists is now a day marked by demonstrations and debate. Jim Maceda reports.
Suddenly, it was like the old days. Communist anthems blared, red flags and photos of Soviet founder Vladimir Lenin streamed into Moscow's Manege Square. 75 years after the Bolshevik Revolution, thousands of demonstrators protested the reforms of Russian President Boris Yeltsin. In the past, November 7th was a day of celebration, when Soviet might was rolled out before an approving communist elite. Today's celebration was just a memory.
It's no longer a holiday for us. It's lost all its meaning.
And the Communist Party, banned by Yeltsin's government, has lost everything but its symbols. Protesters were banned entry onto Red Square, which reminded many of the days when all demonstrations were outlawed.
It's bad that government blocks demonstration on Red Square. It means that Yeltsin fears the nation, the people.
Some scuffles broke out between pro- and anti-government demonstrators. Yeltsin, under pressure from former communists, has vowed not to allow his reforms to be defeated. But the real fear is that as living conditions continue to deteriorate, Russians will turn their backs on their fledgling democracy and turn back to the past. Jim Maceda, NBC News, Moscow.
And that's the news at this hour. Now let's give a grand welcome to Al Roker, who's going to tell us it's going to be a fantastic weekend.
Grand welcome, yes. Well,
hello.
Yeah, that would work too. Let's check it out, show you what's going on. And again, here's the jet stream. The band of air about 20,000 feet above the Earth's surface, and you can see it dips down way south, and so cloudy and cold for the eastern half of the country, unsettled in the northwestern quadrant, mild and dry in the southwest. And here's how it shapes up as far as the afternoon temperatures are concerned, just about following that jet stream. You can see how chilly it's going to be. 20s in Minnesota and parts of Wisconsin and the Dakotas. 30s and 40s as you head on down into the northeast. The Ohio Valley, mid-Mississippi Valley doesn't really warm up till you get into the southwest or central and southern Florida. Now, as far as today's weather is concerned, we do have some scattered snows, pesky flakes hanging around from Minnesota all the way through the Ohio Valley on into the northeast. Sunshine, but chilly as you get on down into the Gulf Coast. Some showers in central Florida, southern Texas, wet weather out west in the northwest. Sunshine in the southwest, but still not as warm as it should be this time of year. That's your weather on today at 6 minutes past the hour. And we're looking for a high today, only 45 degrees in New York City, cloudy skies. 77 in Los Angeles. They will have sunshine, where it was in the 80s in northern Florida yesterday. Jacksonville today, only 67 degrees. 37 for a high in Chicago. And it's the Miami Air Show at the Opa-locka Airport. Say that 5 times fast. Opa-locka Airport, Miami, Florida, with showers and temperatures in the low 80s. That's your latest weather. Now time for sports with the man Mike Ditka wants to replace Jim Harbaugh.
Today's sports is brought to you by Mountain Grown Folgers Coffee, the best part of waking up.
And they think this would be tough in baseball, and you thought it was over. 7 more players filed for free agency, including Detroit shortstop Alan Trammell and Oakland's Rich Gossage. Rich Gossage has played everywhere. Robin Yount of the Milwaukee Brewers is expected to file tomorrow. Now with sports news you don't need legal representation for, here's Bill Crowley.
Some of the opening night action in the NBA, Air Jordan and the Chicago Bulls still flying high. Jordan had 29, and the two-time NBA champs beat Cleveland 101-96. Dominique Wilkins also picked up where he left off, reaching the 20,000-point milestone after missing much of last year. But Patrick Ewing had 22 points as the Knicks beat the Hawks 106-94. Chuck Daly's debut as coach of New Jersey, a surprising success. Chris Morris had 28 points as the Nets beat the Sixers 114-111. Also making a debut, Lloyd Daniels, who scored his first NBA basket after a long comeback from drugs and a near-fatal shooting. But San Antonio lost to Sacramento 114-106. The post-Larry Bird era in Boston started with a bang as Reggie Lewis popped for 27 and the Celtics beat Minnesota 113-92. And in Yokohama, Japan, Seattle's Sean Kemp put on a show as the Supersonics shot down the Rockets 111-94. That's today's sports. I'm Bill Crowley.
And up next, we will ask the Reverend Jesse Jackson for the hopes and the counsel he has for the next president after these messages.
Spent the night tossing in bed.
Said some things I shouldn't have said.
Now the sunlight's breaking through. I put some coffee on for you.
Can't help waking up. Oh, I smell that Folgers brew.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Mountain-grown beans, specially ground, now give Folgers richer aroma to help wake you up and light up your morning.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Things you never heard about a brand cereal before.
Wow.
If you've never heard this about a brand cereal, try Kellogg's Frosted brand. It's different. It's lightly frosted, and it's crunchy, so it tastes delicious. Kellogg's Frosted brand. It sure doesn't sound like brand. Oh, one more thing you never heard.
You know that's brand you're eating.
I know, it's great. Ooh, girl, we covered all the bases. The way that we fed you, too good to be true. You're gonna feel all right in all the right places. Just wait till we get our Hanes on you. Hanes her way, her way.
Hanes Her Way sweats, styled to give you the colors, the cuts, the room to be you.
Whoa, just wait till we get our Hanes on you.
Rust. What it can do to the outside of your car, weak, neglected antifreeze can do to the inside. You need Presto. No matter what happens to the outside, Prestone protects the inside. Prestone stops the rust that stops your car.
Michael J. Fox and James Woods in the Buddy movie of the year.
You egomaniacal little cockroach. What am I doing?
A television premiere, The Hard Way, NBC Sunday.
Joining us this morning to talk about Bill Clinton's election and any policies he might like to urge on the first Democratic president in a dozen years is the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Mr. Jackson.
Before you get into anything serious, they had a big event for Phil Donahue last night, and Al Roker was on the floor doing the boogaloo, even on a bad knee.
Well, I'm sure his knee was bad after he got finished doing the boogaloo. All right. Well, thanks for letting us in on his nocturnal activities. Mr. Jackson, let me ask first, what reaction do you have to the appointment of Vernon Jordan and Warren Christopher as a transition team?
Steps in the right direction, able, sensitive. They've been there before. They have a history of relating to matters of social justice, racial justice, gender equality, and that's the kind of sensitivity that's required to change the course and make the nation better.
Do you think that the two of them have a substantially broader network of contacts and range of experience than what we're used to seeing?
Well, their basic orientation is expansion and inclusiveness as opposed to inclusiveness. And so to the extent to which there is room for all of America, red, yellow, brown, black, and white, the extent there's room for all the people, all of us can serve, all of us can work together to make the country better. And that Mr. Clinton will honor the promises that he made, if they are real priorities in the first 100 days, the nation will feel much better about itself early on. There's a promise to full employment, to reduce it down to 3.5%. You may recall this 1972 when it got to 5%. It's up around 7 or 8 now. Nixon imposed wage and price controls. He had to bring it under control. Now it's 7%, perhaps rising. And so the commitment to put America back to work is obviously the big economic stimulus that we're waiting for. A commitment to a national health care plan that no American will be left unprotected in a greater measure. He made a commitment to the universal daycare for working mothers and to statehood for Washington, D.C., which is the way to empower people to expand our democracy. Those promises made are kept, but certainly going to change the course, and you'll see a much more effective government.
May I ask, Mr. Jackson, have you talked to President-elect Clinton yet?
Well, not since the election, a few days before.
This is not representative of any one thing in particular. Wall Street Journal has some advice for President-elect Clinton. I think every newspaper has been weighing in. A number of editorialists suggest that Mr. Clinton would make a mistake to hold too much to what they sometimes identify as the Jackson wing of the Democratic Party. That the party won this time because they were able to bring people who voted for Ronald Reagan across the line.
Well, the fact is, those persons who left because under Mr. Carter, it was 10% unemployment. That was 21%, if you will, stagflation. People left because Reagan asked the question, are you better off 4 years later? And they said no. So they left under those economic conditions. In '84, with an 8% economic growth rate, Mondale called for raising taxes, and he got wiped out. In 1992, with 10 million people unemployed and plant gates closing and farms being auctioned off, Bush did not have an economic record to run on. So those persons left because of economic distress, and they're returning based upon economic distress. And it took those who left, connected with those who never left, in order to win. Now, what Bill Clinton did was put forth a plan that appeals to, if you will, to all elements. The idea of put America back to work, that appeals to suburban, inner city, rural, black, white, a national health care plan, civil rights, affirmative action, making the wealthy pay their fair share of taxes, foreign corporations paying their fair share of taxes, cutting the military budget deeper than Bush had planned to reinvest, a 4-year, $200 billion plan to reinvest in the country. Those are very central economic and moral concerns.
Would you, for example, serve as United Nations ambassador in a Clinton administration?
You know, my particular interest, A, is that Mr. Clinton honor the promises that he made to the people. Secondly, that he honors in the first 100 days D.C. statehood. I've been elected U.S. Senator from Washington. More people live in Washington than 5 states. We pay more taxes than 10 states. More youth in the Persian Gulf than 20. If he honors that commitment and we get D.C. statehood, I could effectively work with him as a U.S. Senator.
Because you'd be an actual U.S. Senator then and not just a statehood senator.
Absolutely.
Anybody who else you'd like to recommend to him at this point, who you think would be
No, that really is Vernon, Jordan, and Warren Christopher's job in that transition committee. I think that we need not be so publicly generous with our recommendations. I think we ought to be a part of the process, having a meeting with leaders later on today, just talking about transition, talking about first 100-day priorities, talking about the shared sacrifices that must be made, and talking about how do you really get this economy moving again. For too long we've had our cities abandoned, farmers forsaken, and our youth neglected. We've got to change that course.
If I could ask you this just quickly, Reverend, do you see statehood for the District of Columbia as an issue, as a civil rights issue at this point, of particular interest to...
Fundamentally that. I mean, more people live in Washington than Vermont, Delaware, North Dakota, Wyoming, and Alaska. We pay more taxes than 10 states. We don't have the right to vote. The right to vote is a civil rights issue.
Do you see it as a priority issue for the rest of the country?
Well,
a civil rights issue.
2 U.S. senators voting is very significant. Taxation without representation, we pay more taxes than 10 states, more per capita than 49 states, and don't have the right to vote. Okay. So a lack of democracy anywhere is a threat to democracy everywhere.
Thanks for being with us. More on Today on NBC.
You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. Santa Claus is coming to town.
Santa Claus is coming to town, along with Frosty the Snowman and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Okay, Rudolph, full power!
Now you can light up the holiday season for your children again and again with 3 of the best-loved original Christmas classics ever, all from Time Life Video. From Frosty to Rudolph to Santa himself.
It's almost Christmas.
Have a holly jolly Christmas. It's the best time of the year. I don't know if there'll be snow, but have a cup of cheer.
All characters you loved as a child back again to make Christmas even more memorable for your kids or grandchildren.
Frosty the Snowman was alive as he could be, and the children say he could laugh and play just the same as you and me.
A Child's Video Christmas. 3 legendary movies selected by Time Life as the best in children's holiday entertainment. and all for $39.99.
It's a difficult responsibility when you accept an appointment from His Majesty.
So call now for all the warmth, wonder, and great music, too.
Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in...
Here's how to order your Child's Video Christmas now.
Merry Christmas!
To order your Child's Video Christmas, have your credit card ready and call 1-800-624-4900. That's 1-800-624-4900. Or send $39.99 plus $4.50 shipping and handling to Child's Video Christmas, P.O. Box 1880, Department ZU, Alexandria, Virginia 22313. Or call 1-800-624-4900.
If you've been trying to eat healthier or feed your family healthier meals, you probably spend a lot of time reading the labels on food packages when you go shopping. But what do they tell you? Critics say those labels are often misleading. Next week, the FDA is expected to release new regulations to crack down on the problem. And with us today to sort some of this out is Bonnie Liebman, the Director of Nutrition for the Center for Science in the Public Interest. Good morning, Bonnie, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Now, what is it about food labels that you think should be improved?
Well, one of the biggest problems is that labels now tell you how much fat or sodium or cholesterol is in a serving of a food, but they don't give you any idea of how much you should eat in a day. And a lot of people don't know, is 100 milligrams of sodium a lot? Is 5 grams of saturated fat a little? The FDA has proposed having labels give you just a ballpark figure of roughly how much fat, saturated fat, sodium, and other nutrients you should eat in a whole day.
And it's often a bit confusing also when they tell you grams or milligrams.
If you have the total amount you're supposed to eat in a whole day and the percentage of that total amount, it'll make things a little clearer. The problem is the FDA is trying to set those levels of fat and saturated fat very low to protect people, and the food industry and the Department of Agriculture don't like those low numbers, so there's a lot of arguments still going on.
You've brought some products here today, and I think all of these make certain claims on their labels, but you say that what they're claiming on the labels isn't exactly reflective of what the product is, right?
That's often true. For example, this says extra light olive oil, which makes a lot of people think that it's lower in fat or calories or something. It's just got a lighter taste, so it's not really light in any nutritional sense.
Really?
And there is no, right now, there is no government definition of a light food.
So that is completely legal?
That's right. Well, until the new regulations go into effect. This product says light and healthy. It's really got way too much fat and sodium to be called healthy, but there's no definition of healthy either. This product says extra light and ultralight and low fat. It's not a low-fat cheese, but there's been no definition of low fat, so companies could make those claims and nothing could be done about them.
Okay, let's get down to these products here. Butter.
Okay, the problem here is that a lot of companies in the past have manipulated the serving size. They've made the serving size very small to make the product look lower in fat or calories or sodium. For example, that butter has a 1 teaspoon serving size, so does the margarine. Almost every other company uses a 1 tablespoon serving size, which is 3 times bigger, but a lot of people may not realize that. They just look at the calories and say, hey, this one's lower. This is a frozen yogurt and an ice cream, both made by the same company. The ice cream has a 4-ounce serving size, which is very small to begin with. It's only half a cup. The frozen yogurt has a 3-ounce serving size. Almost all frozen yogurts in the store use a very small serving size. The frozen yogurt is better for you, but the company should be using the same serving size, and the new regulations will require that.
The companies would say, but you can read the labels, can't you?
That's right, but most people don't check the serving size, and even if you do check the serving size, you got to do a calculation in your head. You got to figure, well, this is 3 ounces, that's 4 ounces, I have to multiply. It's way too hard for the average person to do when they're standing in the store.
What about the products the new regulations won't cover?
Well, these products represent some of the labels that will not be fixed with the new labeling regulations. For example, this is a low-fat 2% milk. 2% milk 2% fat milk is not low in fat. It won't meet the FDA's definition of low fat, but it will still be allowed to be called low fat because the dairy industry got Congress to exempt low fat milk from the new labeling law. So you can still expect to see that label on this food, even though it's not low fat.
So that milk isn't really low in fat?
That's right, and most people don't know it, and it's a very popular item, but it was exempted from the law.
But it's lower than whole milk?
It's lower than whole milk. Whole milk is about 3.3% fat. Most people don't realize that. So it's only a drop from 3.3 to 2. You really have to get down to 1% fat milk or skim if you want a low-fat milk.
Aren't you really telling people here to wake up, to remind them that they should be more aware of what they're eating?
Well, we are, but I think people need the tools in order to make those kinds of decisions. You know, most people know they're supposed to eat less fat or saturated fat, but when you get into the supermarket, it's so confusing. And these labels make it very difficult for people to figure out which foods are actually healthy for them.
So the new law will be in effect when?
Well, it's supposed to go into effect in May '93, but there may be an extension of time. We're hoping within the next year.
Okay, Bonnie Liebman, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back after these messages. This is Today on NBC.
Introducing a different air freshener, new Glade Nature's Collection.
Give me fresh, give me clean, give me Nature's Collection.
Glade's collection of nature's freshest fragrances in a spray and a carpet deodorizer. It's different, never heavy, always light to freshen any room.
So fresh, so light, give me fruit, give me green, give me Nature's Collection.
New Glade Nature's Collection from S.C. Johnson Wax.
Nature's Collection, yeah.
That's right. There's a little morale problem lately.
Am I missing something?
It's not exactly a cushy job. We owe them more than just a paycheck. When Buddy's wife was in the hospital, our health plan didn't cover everything. What? He had to lay out his own money.
Gaps like co-payments and deductibles can be closed with Aflac. Affordable supplemental insurance from Aflac gives your employees the protection they need and deserve.
Let's talk to Aflac.
Aflac, insuring over 35 million people worldwide. In 1895, Wilhelm Röntgen discovered X-rays. The following year, Siemens worked closely with him to develop its first X-ray tubes. That was then. This is now. Today, Siemens manufactures imaging technology that helps doctors save lives. And with 35,000 people nationwide, the men and women of Siemens will continue to manufacture ideas that even Professor Röntgen never dreamed of. Siemens, precision thinking.
These are Jimmy Dean flapsticks. They taste wonderful, the hardest thing I ever tried to explain in my life. Take Jimmy Dean sausage, wrap a nice pancake around it, put a handle on it. You understand that? You do. Try it. Taste that country goodness.
I'm paid to buy the high-volume copiers. I don't want to have to worry about them.
The corporate line from Canon.
If our copiers are working, our people are working.
Reliable high-volume copiers you don't have to think about. The corporate line from Canon, the new power in high-volume copying.
President Bush's defeat at the polls this past week was cause for celebration in Iraq. Saddam Hussein had boasted that he would outlast Mr. Bush despite Iraq's massive defeat in the Gulf War. To the south in Kuwait, the human cost of that war continues to be counted, the cost to children. Keith Miller just returned from Kuwait with that story.
16-year-old Hamoud was tortured by the Iraqis while being held prisoner. He says seeing a fellow prisoner shot in the head with a pistol still gives him nightmares. They don't look like victims, but few children in Kuwait were able to escape the Iraqi occupation untouched. The damage, according to psychologists, is on the inside.
We need help. We need to repair ourselves, and the damage is really great. The damage is really big. That's how I believe. And I see it every day. I see it because I work with children, I work with adults, and I see the pain.
Dr. Hajia uses toy soldiers and toy guns to help his patients act out their ordeal, to lessen their fear. For every child that seeks help, there are hundreds of others who carry their horror as a secret. 9-year-old Manira can't sleep. It's the dreams, she says, that keep her awake. She was taken hostage by the Iraqis for 5 months, and her older brother is still missing. She can't talk about him, but she can draw him.
And he's in a lot of pain. Oh, my God. What a disaster.
How about this drawing? Can you interpret this one for us?
Yes. He drew, this is a rock. He said, this is a big rock on a child's leg. That's what he drew the first time. This is trauma. And you see his frustration and his anger.
Was he on an iMac?
Manira isn't looking to the future. She still dwells in her past.
I wish I could be the child I was before the invasion of Kuwait.
Dr. Hajia says the children of Kuwait were robbed of their innocence during the war, and their search for security may be a never-ending one. Keith Miller, NBC News, Kuwait.
And we will have more on today after a station break.
Sunday, a madman's going to crash a plane into the White House.
We're going to Washington!
Based on the actual case.
No!
Secret Service Sunday at 7 on NBC.
If you're searching for the perfect wedding dress, you simply must come to Classic Bride this weekend. Our special guest will be Antonio Fermin, International Designer and 1992 Designer of the Year. The Antonio Fermin collection weaves into traditional wedding dresses the royalty and majesty of European design, with a more feminine touch you'll love. Antonio will personally attend to your needs and see you get one of his very special wedding dresses. Meet Antonio Fermin in person this Friday through Sunday at Classic Bride, 200 Army Post.
Each year, taxpayers pump millions into the food stamp system.
Hi, you want to buy some stamps? I got 20.
Food stamps are supposed to buy food for needy families and children.
Think he'd buy some food stamps? Huh? Will Bob buy some food stamps?
It's your tax money, but is it being used for the right purpose? Or is it being used to buy drugs, liquor, and even cigarettes?
I really thank you very much. No.
News Center 13's undercover investigation, Money for Nothing, food stamp fraud, Wednesday at... This is WHO, TV 13, Des Moines.
Welcome back to Today, and we're seeing live pictures courtesy of our Miami affiliate WTVJ, and we're looking at a shot of the Dinner Key Marina in Coconut Grove. Isn't it beautiful? And we're back. I'm Jackie Nespral along with Scott Simon and Al Roker. Isn't it beautiful?
It's gorgeous. It's beautiful. Beautiful. Fabulous.
Not because I live... Anyway.
That brings it back?
It sure does. In this half hour, Star Jones on medical malpractice. What are your rights? And what can you do if you think you have a case? Scott?
Also coming up, a family chased out of their neighborhood in a small town near Chicago, and what to do to get your car ready for snow and ice.
But first, we have this news. After 13 months on the campaign trail, President-elect Bill Clinton is taking the weekend off at home. However, his transition team is hard at work. The team's first goal is naming an economic security council that can turn the economy around fast. The new president has selected a pair of Washington experts to shape his government. Civil rights leader Vernon Jordan is chairman, working from Washington. Handling daily operations in Little Rock is Warren Christopher. He's a former Deputy Secretary of State who headed the Los Angeles riot probe.
To begin to choose.
Vice President-elect Al Gore is also home this morning in Tennessee, savoring victory with his longtime supporters. Gore and his wife Tipper got a noisy, enthusiastic welcome last night in Nashville with rock and country music in the background. 2,000 backers cheered the senator. Gore says he'll spend most of his time working in Little Rock with the transition team. White wine and vegetable oil, those are the weapons in the threatened trade war between the United States and Europe. Ministers from 12 nations in the European community are discussing a truce, but France says it and 3 other countries are ready to hit back. The U.S. has given 30 days notice that it will double import taxes on products like wine from France and Germany. That's unless France removes subsidies to farmers for products like oilseed used in mayonnaise and margarine. In Detroit, 7 police officers are suspended after the beating death of motorists during a traffic check. The officers are accused of dragging the 35-year-old Green from his car and beating him Thursday night. The attack allegedly continued even after Green was handcuffed and paramedics were at the scene. The officers are suspended without pay and could face murder charges. Detroit's police chief Stanley Knox calls it a disgrace. In Florida, the National Guard is patrolling a highway that snipers have turned into Nightmare Alley. The Guard is patrolling in combat vehicles and helicopters around Jacksonville, along Interstate 295. That's a main tourist route into Florida and Disney World. There have been over 30 incidents of sniper fire or rock throwing there since mid-February, with 1 death and several injuries reported. This week, the American Automobile Association warned motorists to steer clear of 295. And that's news at this hour. Let's take a look at the weather with Al Roker.
That's right. Now, is Orlando a football fan, your husband?
He sure is, a Dolphin fan and a Hurricane fan.
All righty. Scott, of course, you are a big football fan.
Oh, I am.
I know.
The Bears.
By the way, so am I.
And
Just
so
because
are
I'm
you.
a woman does not mean that I'm not a football fan.
Okay, so Al's not politically correct. Is that the deal? Fine. I'm a Neanderthal. Welcome, Mr. Endomorph.
And I like women's field hockey an awful lot.
Okay,
I have no idea what the scoring is, what the game is, but boy, I like to watch it.
Let's take a look. This was all to get ready for the football forecast, but perhaps I should have avoided it. But Pittsburgh Steelers at the Buffalo Bills. They're going to have partly cloudy skies tomorrow. Temperatures in the low 30s. San Diego Chargers at Kansas City, and their temperatures will be in the mid-50s. Jackie Later's taking me to a Rangers game. We're looking for cold conditions in the Northeast, cloudy skies, a few snowflakes spreading right through the Ohio Valley on into the western Great Lakes. We got sunshine, cool conditions in the south. It's cold in the midsection of the country, and we're looking at wet weather with some snows all the way back into the northwest, and heavier snows later on tomorrow in the Cascades, and also some more moderate snow also through the northern plains into the western Great Lakes, up and down the eastern seaboard. Sunshine, but cold, and cold in the southwest as well. So it looks like we've got some chilly conditions to talk about over the next few days. Almost as chilly as Jackie is toward me right now. 34 past the hour. We're expecting a high today of 37 degrees in Chicago and expect plenty of sunshine, but it is going to be awfully cold, 54 degrees in Seattle, and it's going to be very rainy there, 73 degrees in San Francisco, maybe an afternoon shower or two, 29 in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and maybe a little light snow. And it's Sadie Hawkins Day, where the women get to chase the men for a change, November 7th, 1992. Looks pretty good. And that's the latest weather. Now here's Scott.
Today's weather is brought to you by Kellogg's, the best to you each morning.
If you feel that you've been the victim of a doctor's mistake, what amounts to medical malpractice, what can you do? Do you know your rights? There are a number of possible choices, and Star Jones is here to tell us about our patients' rights. Good morning, Star.
Good morning, Scott. We received a letter from a viewer in Illinois. Her father, she thinks, has been the subject of medical malpractice. And so she wanted to know, what in the world do I do? Her letter was, this hospital and Dr. X needs to be investigated by some authorities that can do something about what's going on there. Who could I get to do this? And so we started doing some digging for her, and there's this great organization, the Center for Patients' Rights. The center provides information to people, consumers, medical consumers, if you will, all of us who have to deal with these doctors and these hospitals, on what your rights are. And this particular organization will be very happy to receive phone calls, receive letters on where you go to file a malpractice suit, what do? Do you have a claim or a cause of action?
Those are all good questions. Of course, it occurs to me that a really serious medical malpractice suit, you're in no position to file it because the worst kind of mistake has already been made.
Yes.
How do you find a lawyer when you have problems with a doctor?
You know, the best place that I've found is to go into the yellow pages, and you will find, quite frankly, malpractice attorneys under malpractice. You can also call your local bar associations, the American Bar Association, the New York State Bar Association, and for our viewer in Illinois, clearly the Illinois State Bar Association, in order to get recommendations on attorneys who have handled these kinds of cases. You don't want someone whose specialty is criminal law to handle the suit against a hospital or a doctor. You don't want to compound your mistake in using a bad doctor by using a bad lawyer.
I've had the impression as a reporter over the years that it is so expensive to file one of these suits and so time-consuming, and they count on that to keep people from filing what are considered to be frivolous suits.
Okay. Time-consuming, yes. The cases that are being heard around the country right now, I'm sorry to tell you, are cases that occurred in the mid to late 80s. So that should let you know how backed up our civil courts are. However, it should not be expensive. Most of these cases, almost all of these cases, are taken on contingency fee basis. And what that means for the non-lawyers out in our audience, it means that you don't pay your lawyer until you recover some kind of damages from the hospital or from the doctor. And so that way your outlay of money is not there. But mind you, that expenses will come out of whatever settlement you get, as well as whatever the percentage is. And it depends on the state. It will range sometime between 25 to 33% of the ultimate recovery will go to the attorney's office.
Before a patient undergoes considerable medical treatment, they are often, in fact, maybe always, I'm not certain, asked to sign some kind of release, which prevents a doctor, or at least the language of it would seem to prevent a doctor from being sued by a patient.
You know, and that's also a little bit of a misnomer. The release tells you, this is what I plan to do for you and to you in terms of an invasive procedure, surgeries. What I'm going to do in surgery, okay? That does not release the doctor from liability should they mess up during that surgery.
These things are called consent forms.
Exactly.
They shouldn't be that obscure.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you sign a consent form in the hospital or in your doctor's office or wherever it is that you sign it, you are saying, I agree to allow you to perform this procedure. You do not give up your rights to sue that doctor, male or female, if that doctor screws up.
Is there a time limit in which a patient can act?
Depends on your state, and it depends on who you're suing. It can range anywhere from 90 days to, in Illinois, 4 years. We did some searching for that particular viewer.
These kinds of suits have been increasing in recent years. Now, is it, trick question, is it because patients are, and this is good, becoming more aware of their legal rights, or is it because there have been more settlements and more people see a way to make some money?
Well, you hear a lot of people who are constantly suing, and of course you do have people who take advantage of a situation, but there are a number of people that are out there who have been wronged, and they're supposed to make sure that their rights are looked out for. I want to make sure that the viewers get the address that are down there for the Center for Patients' Rights. We want to make sure it's 666 Broadway, Suite 410, New York, New York, 10012. The phone number's there.
Okay. And, you know, doctors have complained in recent years that the, well, I guess we'll take up their complaints later, won't we? Okay. Thank you, Star. If you have a legal question that you'd like to ask Star Jones, you can write to Star Jones for the People, in care of NBC News, room 114030 Rockefeller Plaza, New York, New York, 10112. And still ahead on today, racism in a small town near Chicago drives a family out of their home. After these messages.
You've been dieting with a very special day in mind, which could mean you're not getting your daily amount of protein, because many foods that provide protein are also high in fat. But not this one, Kellogg's Special K, the only cereal that's fat-free and a good source of protein. So make Special K part of your future plans and get into that dress you've been dying to wear. Kellogg's Special K. Get the protein, lose the fat.
Hey, nice suit. Expensive?
Not at Burlington Coat Factory.
Designer dress. Cost a lot?
Not at Burlington Coat Factory.
Wow, great outfits. Cost your mom plenty?
Not at Burlington Coat Factory.
But why do they call it Burlington Coat Factory?
Because they have more thieves than anybody.
Besides, ever try to say Burlington ladies, men's, kids, suits, shirts, sportswear, linens, dresses, furs, slacks, Coat Factory?
Finally, a chance to get away. Moments like this call for Gold MasterCard.
We could find a romantic hotel.
In Paris? It has the added credit you've earned.
We could sneak off to the beach.
Yeah, Maui. Plus, no card is accepted in more places at home and abroad.
Or we could take a trip we'll all remember.
Gold MasterCard, the best gold card to master the moment.
This is your captain speaking. We've just reached our cruising altitude of 31,000 feet. And in a moment, the flight attendants will begin serving lunch and...
Captain, we forgot the Colombian coffee.
100% Colombian coffee, handpicked by Juan Valdez. It's the richest coffee in the world.
Earlier this hour, we heard from Jesse Jackson about politics and about race in this country, about African-American voters who believe they've been ignored for the last 12 years. Right now, we're going to hear the story of one family who had no idea how deep intolerance still runs in this country until it moved into one suburban Chicago neighborhood. Lucky Severson has the story.
The Clifton Campbell family from Jamaica. He's an engineer. His wife, Dulcie, is a nursing assistant. We're in a suburb of Chicago, somewhere near where they live. They were afraid to take us to their apartment, afraid that the horror of the last few months might revisit them.
It took me about 3-4 months to really start getting upset about the whole thing, because then I knew that the only crime I committed was because I had a different color on my skin, and that made me really, really mad.
I've been fighting fear, most of all. I was a nervous wreck. I was afraid for the life of my children and my husband.
They learned the meaning of fear the first night they moved into the dream home they had just purchased in the blue-collar town of Berwyn, Illinois. The very first night, someone threw a rock through the back window. 2 nights later, someone set the front porch afire. Then there were threatening phone calls and letters, daily harassment. Suddenly, their dream home became a living hell.
I reached the stage where I went shopping and was afraid of getting back in the car, thinking that somebody might trail me and put a bomb in it.
I don't think, though, that the issue has died. It's, you know, it's alive still. I mean, it has.
Chris and John Lorenz live up the street. Like many neighbors, they were appalled at what was happening.
I was embarrassed. You know, I was embarrassed to be a part of this town. For me, you know, I wanted them to know that not everybody is like this.
For a while, it seemed like this town of 43,000, with only 51 black apartment dwellers, wanted the Campbells to stay. Neighbors and church leaders offered support and fellowship.
And while these people begged us to stay, we changed our mind because we had a for sale sign up at the house. We took it down, we changed our mind about moving, we decided to give it a shot.
But the silent majority, if it is a majority here, kept silent, and the threats continued. Pastor Larry Pilkington of the Emmanuel Bible Church.
There are the people who see the Campbells as blockbusters, who are sent in by outside groups to force integration in the area. Those people are very hostile and angry, essentially because they believe that their property values are going to go down.
So who did it? The police don't seem to know, but Vito Pezzoni, who lives in the neighborhood, thinks it was local gangs.
The younger crowd that lives around here, especially coming from Cicero, you know, I mean, they do tend to be a little prejudiced. You know, personally myself, I'm not, you know, I don't care.
Throughout the ordeal, the mayor and city aldermen remained strangely quiet. They eventually condemned the violence and ordered full-time police protection, but then they withdrew it while the Campbells were still receiving threats.
If the city officials can stand up and say we're living in 1992, then people are still going to think that they are living way back when.
I think it's the mayor's place as head of the city to make that statement, and he did not. That's all I think it would have taken.
I don't know who's more at fault, the city fathers or the spiritual leaders of the community, that, including myself, that should have taken more direct action.
Finally, after their oldest son, Paul, threatened to kill himself, the Campbells put their house up for sale, filed suit against the city, and moved to another Chicago suburb.
I think about my kids getting first-hand experience of racism, and that's something that no family would want for their kids.
Do you think that fewer people will vote for the mayor because of his actions, or will it make any difference?
Actually, I'm almost afraid that, you know, you might get more votes because of not saying anything, because of not taking a stand.
As it is now, the Campbells are paying for a house they can't sell in Berwyn, plus an apartment that's not their home. And they're facing bankruptcy.
Well, I'm a fighter, and I'm not going to let this incident put me down.
For today, I'm Lucky Severson, NBC News, Berwyn, Illinois.
And up next, Andy Parr getting your car ready for winter before the snow and ice arrive. After these messages.
The label on blue jeans, eyeglasses, or neckties says they're special, better than the rest. And now there's a label on drinking water. Sparkling clear drinking water with the contaminants taken care of. Water that tastes better by itself and better in coffee, tea, and other beverages. So if you appreciate the finer things in life, you'll appreciate the finest drinking water. And whose label goes on the equipment to make this better water? Culligan, of course. Today, you get a lot more than soft water when you call.
Hey, Culligan man.
I want to check in with our team of field reporters standing by lots throughout the Des Moines area.
That this was a shared victory. We won it together tonight.
And then Skip Loescher joins us from Houston. Skip, we just talked to Charles Ziwi in Little Rock.
If that number hits 885, that will be the 75% turnout.
It's going to be exciting. We're going to make some big changes. We're going to get this country moving again.
What's happening and why? Now you can know. Because there's a show called Real News for Kids. From the latest trends, world events, what's hot? You'll get the big story on Real News for Kids. News from your point of view. It's your world, too. And this show's for you. Real News for Kids.
Saturday mornings at 5:30 and 9, only on TV 13.
Ducks, geese, swans. They're the barometers of our health. They need plenty of clean air and water, just like we do. But when they start to disappear, we know our environment is in danger, and so are we. Ducks Unlimited can bring them back by restoring their habitat. Join Ducks Unlimited. Protecting waterfowl protects us all.
Today's auto segment is brought to you by Prestone. It stops the rust that stops your car.
You know, the time to think about winterizing your car or truck is not when the snow is already blowing and the thermometer's frozen solid. No, now is the time to deal with getting your vehicle in shape for winter. And believe it or not, there are a lot of simple things you can do. And here's a simple man to help us along, our own gadget guru, Andy Parr.
Well, Al, I want to thank you very much. Remember that engine you used to have in your car?
Yeah.
Thank you for loaning it to us this morning.
You cleaned it and painted it. Thank you.
Got it all fixed up here. And, you know, winterizing your car is an important part of winter. It's like going out to buy new clothes and a new heavy coat. And there are really two aspects of your engine that really need to be taken care of. Number one is your radiator, and number two is your battery. Now, starting off with the radiator, if you want to try to do this yourself at home or in your garage, what you might want to do is pick up a coolant tester. You can find these in any automotive shops for around $3.50 to $5.
Now, this tests
This tests the antifreeze or the coolant.
Gotcha.
You know, antifreeze and coolant, basically the same thing, depending on what time of the year you're putting them in.
Okay.
And now, to use this, all you have to do, you go up to your radiator cap. Now, rule number one, wait till your engine is cold.
Right.
If not, all sorts of steam is going to be popping up. You just press down on your cap. Now, if steam starts coming up, go away and come back later.
Right.
Take it off. And then you just insert this in, squeeze the bulb, and just let it fill up with fluid. Now, as you can see, this dial is moving here, and this is protected to about 7 degrees below zero. That's Fahrenheit. Centigrade equivalent would be about 22 below.
Now, how often should you do this?
You should do this right at the very beginning of winter. And so this way, you know, you can tell if your engine's protected. A good rule of thumb, you should flush out or change your antifreeze about every 18 months to 2 years maximum. Old antifreeze, even though it might still keep your engine cool, will start creating rust. Could be a problem later. Now, if you do need to add antifreeze, you know, most cars have this little kind of plastic box in here. The reservoir, you can look in here whether it's you need to add coolant or whatever, just pour it right in here. But if you want to try to flush it out, like if it's that 18-month period, you can get kits, for example, this replacement system, which it's really not difficult to do. You can do this in about 30 minutes to an hour or so, where you would cut your hose and put a new clamp on it. You would, this funnel is for you to flush water through, and then you have this reservoir jug that would connect onto here. All your antifreeze, your old antifreeze, would go into that. And you can get a kit like this for under $10 as opposed to paying $30 or $40.
What do you do with the old antifreeze?
Now, you can take it to a lot of car repair places, and they'll dispose of it in an environmentally sound manner. And again, that's $10 versus $30 to $40 by having it done by a professional mechanic. Now, when you're at the auto parts store, some things you might want to look for. This is a little spill-proof cap that, you know, when you just screw it on and put it on, all you have to do is just twist it, and it will start it. So this way you don't pour it all over. Also good, you can use this for oil bottles whenever. Sells for about $3.
Oh.
Now, in terms of your battery, we borrowed this out of your car, too.
Thank you very much.
And so you're not going anywhere
And
today.
you took my hubcaps, probably.
Yeah, you want a deal on them. I can sell you some later. Now, look at this battery here. See the corrosion around here? Now, corrosion does not mean that there's anything wrong with your battery other than it's sturdy. And what's wrong with corrosive, it will interrupt the bond that you have between your cables and your battery, which means the more corrosion you have, you might not get a good contact for start. You can get a battery cleaner for about $3, put it on, go like this.
Yeah.
Or if you're buying a new battery, what you might want to do is get some battery washers. These are little foam covers
little battery warmers
on here.
Oh,
well, what they do,
nice.
they inhibit corrosives. And all corrosives are caused by the vapors that are coming up from there. Now, when you're going to shop for a new battery, if you're going to buy one, depending on where you live, the weather there, if you live up in the Minnesotas or the Illinois and the cold weather, check for cold cranking amps.
Okay.
900 is about the maximum, goes down to 350. Battery starting price from $30 all the way up to 100. Depending on where you live, it's going to be depending on how many cold cranking amps you want to look for.
All right, well, Andy, thanks for helping us get this thing together, and, you know, you really gave us a charge out of this.
Oh, no.
It was supposed to be a little effect.
Hey, they're a little
but
slow
it didn't
back
work.
there.
Okay.
You want to try it again?
Okay,
Joe,
here we go.
Okay, here we go.
Oh, well.
Oh, okay.
Well, now these
Great
messages.
plan.
It was a great idea.
I'm getting out of
Rust. What it can do to the outside of your car, weak, neglected antifreeze can do to the inside. You need the tough anti-corrosion formula of Prestone. Use fresh Prestone every year to give your radiator and cooling systems heavy-duty rust and corrosion protection. No matter what happens to the outside, Prestone protects the inside. Prestone stops the rust that stops your car.
Spent the night tossing in bed.
Said some things I shouldn't have said.
Now the sunlight's breaking through. I put some coffee on for you.
Can't help waking up. Oh, I smell that Folgers brew.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
Mountain-grown beans, specially ground, now give Folgers richer aroma to help wake you up and light up your morning.
The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I really like Rice Krispie treats. You can make them. They're really easy. I watch my mom. Yeah? First you melt some marshmallow and margarine. Then you pour in the Kellogg's Rice Krispies. Then you come out of the kitchen and put your hand like this and say, "They're finally done." No, you worth all the hard work. Then you could take it out to dinner.
Kellogg's Rice Krispies Treats. So good, so easy.
At Easy Spirit, we've made high heels that are as comfortable as sneakers. So just imagine what we can do for a casual shoe. Easy Spirit casuals. There really is a sneaker inside every shoe.
And we are back on today, and I couldn't help but notice Jesse Jackson mentioning that Al Roker was doing the Tubaloo or the Boogaloo.
Everyone else was doing the Boogaloo, and Al was doing the Tupelo in honor of the new administration.
How was the 25th anniversary celebration of Phil Donahue?
It was great. It was at the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences honoring Phil Donahue's 25th anniversary. Jesse Jackson was there, the Reverend Jackson, and a whole bunch of people. And they showed clips from the show, and it's amazing, to see how much all these people, how different they look. I mean, Jesse Jackson had an afro that had to have an infrastructure in it. I mean, there's no way it could have supported
the
it.
geodesic dome.
Yes, it was incredible.
You gotta remember that.
There were biosphere people living in that thing.
Happily, too.
Exactly, and Phil Donahue's hair was jet black. We saw the first show with Madeline O'Hare, the atheist.
Madeline Murray O'Hare, the atheist, right.
Thank you very much. And it was a fascinating thing to see.
You know, they talk about this is the year of Larry King in politics, right? But, you know, Phil Donahue has also done a lot throughout the years in politics.
Yeah, began back in Dayton.
Dayton, Ohio, 1967, and that was his first guest. And he was a radio newsman. And somebody said, he was doing a talk show, and the competing station said, let's do it on TV. And my gosh, what a success. And some of these shows that he's done. I mean, the one that sticks out in my mind that it was about 2 years ago, and he said that they had men who dress as babies for sexual pleasure.
Oh, boy. That sounds interesting.
These guys were wearing diapers, and they're sitting in a playpen. I mean, it was amazing. But the one that he says everybody mentions is lesbian nuns.
That reminds me of the show here at NBC, A Closer Look.
Reminds
me a lot of it.
I don't think I know anybody who works for that show.
It's Faith Daniels now. Okay.
Faith Daniels,
yes.
that's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
And in fact, I was boogalooing with Faith.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about that, Al.
Well, you know, I don't think so.
This election year, for example, although as you mentioned, a lot of concentration has been paid to Larry King, it was Phil Donahue who really gave the time and place where, as I recall, it was Bill Clinton and Jerry Brown just to go one-on-one with each other. I don't think even he was much of a moderator, and he really has introduced a whole format for political discussion in American life.
If it wasn't for Phil, you'd have no Oprah, no nobody. You know, no Montel.
Well, for those of you leaving us, we hope to see you tomorrow. For those of you staying with us, we'll have much more on today after a station break.
America's new first family is getting a gift from the Powers family.
Good Christmas!
It's the shocking Powers That Be season premiere at 8, 7 Central, NBC Tonight.
If you're searching for the perfect wedding dress, you simply must come to Classic Bride this weekend. Our special guest will be Antonio Fermin, International Designer and 1992 Designer of the Year. The Antonio Fermin collection weaves into traditional wedding dresses the royalty and majesty of European design, with a more feminine touch you'll love. Antonio will personally attend to your needs and see you get one of his very special wedding dresses. Meet Antonio Fermin in person this Friday through Sunday at Classic Bride, 200 Army Post.
Plants and trees add so much to your interior decor. When they are made of silk, they will last forever. I'm Denny Llewellyn with Silk Designs Extraordinaire. We pride ourselves in satisfying our customers' decorating needs. Our designers will custom make your silk plants, trees, and floral arrangements. You'll see our permanent plants and trees in many homes and commercial businesses. We also rent for special occasions, like weddings and banquets. For permanent plants and trees that look real and will last for years, come to Silk Designs Extraordinaire in Valley Junction, right across from the post office.
Danson and Branson, a News Center 13 special report, Monday at 10.